Hello, this is Chase Glenn from the Alliance for Full Acceptance, and we are so glad to see folks that are joining us today. This is a program that's continuing our celebration of International Pride Month, and we are so grateful for those who are joining us in conversation today. I am and so excited to see different people who are able to participate in these conversations, and we've had earlier this week, we had the folks from Charleston Pride join us, and so today I'm excited to have people who were involved with Charleston Pride Festival, past and present, and to see to hear more about their stories, what brought them into this work, and to hear stories from the past, but also the current state of Charleston Pride, what's going on, and all that. So again, my name is Chase Glenn. I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance for Full Acceptance. We are an LGBTQ advocacy organization based here in Charleston, South Carolina. Our work really is focused around amplifying and creating conversations and dialogue around the issues affecting LGBTQ folks. And through those sort of amplifying those conversations, we know that is really what leads to changing hearts and minds so often. If people don't understand, they haven't heard the story of an LGBTQ person, a lot of times they just don't have the perspective to know why those issues are important and what needs to change. So these conversations that we're hosting with leaders in the community are to help us sort of further that conversation and lift up those stories. So with that, I want to go ahead and bring on all of our guests for today. Let me see. There you all are. You're on the screen. Today I have Lynn Dugan, who is the founder of the Charleston Pride Festival. I have Tony Williams, who is a former board member for Charleston Pride, and then Loraine Cook-Holcombe and Mollie Soto, who are currently on the Pride Board. And welcome everyone. All right. And so, I want to give everyone also an opportunity, people who are tuning in, to participate in today's conversation. So if you have a question or a comment that you'd like to share, please put it in the comments. We will do our best to, I'm kind of watching them here on the side of the screen, and I'll do my best to sort of bring those into the conversation. And, through the years of Charleston Pride, there has been a lot of change, right? It started in North Charleston, it ended up moving downtown. The festival grew from being a 1 and 2 day sort of event to a full week's worth of events, and really expanding that programming. I'll also say, just self-disclosure here, I was a former member of the Charleston Pride Board as well. So you've got a whole lot of folks here who've been connected with Charleston Pride through the years. I was on the board for, I think, 4 or 5 years myself, and I was chair for a couple years. So anyway, I'm obviously personally connected to this conversation as well, and really excited to be able to bring this to you all. So with that, I think it makes the most sense to start with Lynn. Lynn, let me bring you on screen here, just you, and want to talk to you. Lynn, talk so we can make sure we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. You look great, sound great.
Perfect.
So, let's just start with you. I want to hear more of your personal story.
Okay.
Sort of, I know you are not necessarily a Charleston native, so, and I think especially it's interesting knowing your story of being in New York and being connected with some of the very early days of the gay rights movement, and the Pride movement as well. So I'd love to hear more of your story, your perspective on how we got here, and this you personally.
How we got here. Well, I grew up in New York City, and yeah, I was connected. Went to the early Pride parades. Was very vocal, certainly at that point. I moved out to Colorado after 47 years of living in New York, and after 10 years moved here to be near my brother, who was up in Rock Hill at the time. And the first Pride parade I went to was in South Carolina, in Columbia, and that's where I met Charlie Smith. And then I moved down to Charleston, and in 2009 I went up to Columbia with the Charleston Social Club to be in the parade, and decided then that it was kind of crazy for me to leave Charleston to go have my pride somewhere else. Why not in my own city? So, and I had no idea how to start this. I had no idea, I had no experience. So I just started making calls and trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. And it was a totally learned experience. I had no idea what to do. But finally, when they refused to, they didn't want us to have a parade downtown. That was made clear. And if it was going to be off to the side where we'd be hidden again. And I thought, that's not going to happen. So I approached Mayor Summey, and he said, we'd love to have you. And he was amazing, actually, to us. He provided all the security for us. I mean, he really went out of his way. I know he got a lot of flack for it, too. But yeah, and that started in, I think I started calling in August of 2009, and by November, I put it out on Facebook, would anybody like to be on the team? I want to put this together. And a lot of people showed up. I was kind of surprised, but I was so glad. And I recruited, I guess that's the best way to put it, someone who I just went blank on his name, to be the chair. And then Paul came on board, and we just had a whole lot of people. And I didn't know what I was doing, so we knew we had to raise money because we had to do it in 6 months. So we thought maybe once a month we'd have a fundraiser, and we wound up having like 2, sometimes 3 fundraisers a month. And the community was amazing because they supported us. I mean, openly, just came to everything. Otherwise, we couldn't have done it. And we had no budget. I mean, we were just flying by the seat of our pants. But it was interesting. It was a lot of hard work, of course, not knowing what to do, and I made every mistake possible, probably. But and then on May 10th or 15th, 2010, we had our first Pride, and it was in North Charleston and Park Circle, and then we had the festival at the park afterwards, the waterfront park. That kind of do it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Trying to get myself back on the screen here. I was at that first festival, and I actually did the first Pride Guide design. Yeah, that's right. And I just remember one of my memories that has stuck with me for all the years. And when in my work with Charleston Pride, I always held on to this as sort of the moment that helped me sort of feel like I wanted to continue and be a part of this work, which was, we were up in North Charleston, we were in Park Circle, standing up there on that East Montague, and watching the parade go by in and of itself was amazingly powerful and just really moving. And then we walked from East Montague, that sort of awkward walk, to Riverfront Park. But I just remember the cars being backed up on that road, other people driving to the park, and my friends and I, we were walking down the road, and you were just passing these cars, and I remember passing so many cars that had one person in there. And I remember thinking, there's people out there who are alone a lot of times in their experience of being LGBTQ, and may not have family support, may not have social support, may not have church support, and all the different types of support that we would hope someone would have in their coming out. But in that moment, they knew there was a Pride Festival happening in their area, and they wanted to go and be a part of that. And then just being able to see that sea of people that showed up that first year, I can only imagine how powerful that was especially for people who didn't have any of that community or any of that support, to be able to see that others existed who were like them, and not only others who were like them, but there were a lot of allies that showed up as well in support. And that's something that hasn't changed, right? Through the years, we just see more and more of that support grow, but also know that there are still a lot of folks out there who don't necessarily have that support in their personal lives. But that memory of walking past those cars, just one person being in that car, bringing themselves to Pride and being a part of that, has really always stuck with me as a reason why what we did as Pride was so important. Um,
Yeah.
so you personally and your experiences in New York and being a part of those early days of
Mhm.
the festivals that happened there, and festival is maybe even a bit of a stretch because the first, well, remind me how early on were you a part of
I
that
think it
movement?
was, I came out in '70s, the year after I watched all the, I don't know what you want to call them, uprising or riots, whichever. Um, but it was early '70s, maybe '72 or '3, that I went. And the first one I went to, and I could look it up, or the second one, we had Bette Midler, who was my neighbor anyway, but we had her and Barry Manilow and Melissa Manchester singing in Washington Square Park for us, and it was amazing. It was just incredible. That is what I think really jump started in a major way, because we had people supporting us. We didn't have that back then, at all. So it was pretty incredible. It was small, not for long, not for long, but it was small in the beginning. We walked through the village and over to Washington Square at one point, and then we started going up Fifth Avenue. It was the opposite way. We were going up to Central Park, at which point they said it's too much, it blocks traffic. Then we started in Central Park and came down. So we ended up in the village, and they shut the village completely off. And so there was no cars, and there were millions of people. It was amazing what happened, what it turned into in just a few years. I mean, maybe 10 years, maybe stretching a few, but maybe 10 years. In the '80s, it was huge. I mean, it was coming down Fifth Avenue. It was incredible. And there were a lot of protests at the time, in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral, because for obvious reasons, the church was not a friend. So there was a lot of everything back when. We had a lot of different groups, formed from that. And so, and they still are out there. Sage started from the early days. Larry Kramer just died, and he was a major part of a lot of it there. He was pretty amazing guy. So, um, yeah.
So going from those early days of being a part of what was happening in New York and then moving here to South Carolina, what
Yeah.
was sort of going on inside of you that made you say, we really need this in Charleston? And was it about the sort of in political? I mean, is really there's no other word for it, maybe,
Mm.
but the really the protest or roots of Pride. Was it about the political, or was it about the social, or was it a combination?
It's always going to be political, anyway. I mean, it's a given, but for me, it was to bring people together. I'm like, why don't we have it here? Because I run the Charleston Social Club. I had 700 women in this group, and I'm like, there must be at least that many men who at least here. So why not have a parade? And everybody's telling me you can't have it because, I got a lot of that. We tried in the '80s, the late '80s, and it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, but I'm still going to give it a shot, But I wanted to bring, in the bigger picture, I wanted to bring everybody together, the community. You mentioned it. People were single in their cars. I had people coming up to me crying, thanking me, in that first Pride. They never thought they'd see it in Charleston. It was just shocking to them. And so, and I also, during that first Pride, I invited a lot of other cities around us, like Augusta. We had the Black group from Columbia come down, and in turn, and Myrtle Beach came down. They all supported us. I wrote to all the mayors of all the cities around us and said, please join us. We would love your support, and blah, blah, blah. So we got a few letters. They're in the archives in the college now, but from a couple of the mayors saying good luck and everything. But it was to bring the community together, because we were all splintered. Nobody knew who was out there. Nobody knew anybody else who was gay, unless you went to the bars, and that was it. That was pretty much your alternative. So not to go back to Charleston Social Club, but when that started, it was it was a revelation that there's a lot of people out there hidden away, trying to be safe and everything, and not knowing how to get in touch unless you went to the bars. So that's kind of I wanted to bring it all together and make us a bigger community, because in numbers there's strength. There's a lot of strength in numbers. So and that was the basic idea, is let's get this started. Even if we fall on our faces, it's okay. We gave it a shot. And we only expected I prayed, I hoped for about 800 people. And when the woman who runs the park, I said, how many people do you think are here? And she goes, oh, well over 4,000. I'm like, really? It was shocking. It was such a great turnout. So I was thrilled that we pulled it off, in such a short time. So
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Really, really amazing what that original group of folks. It was the community
supporting us. I got to say it. And that team we had, oh my God, I drove them nuts, as you probably know. But I'm not easy. But when I have something in goal, that's it. Nothing else. It's all blurred out here. So, but we did it. We all did it. It wasn't just me. It was all of us being there every week. How many meetings a week we had. Catherine LaFond opened up her office so we could have meetings not at Starbucks anymore, because that was a little awkward. People just chipped in and just was so wonderful. So we were lucky, I think, and a lot of hard work, but it wasn't only me. It was everybody.
Well, that's really important to note, and very generous of you to always bring to mind, the different people who were involved, and we know it always takes a village, and it takes a community to be able to pull things like this off. It's never an individual that's able to do something like this. I want to give you just a quick moment to plug Charleston Social Club. You've mentioned it a couple of times. There may be people out there who've never heard of Charleston Social Club. Can you share more about the organization?
Year now.
Yeah, 18.
We're going into the 18th year, August 1st. So I put an ad when I moved here 17 years ago, whenever. I worked for the city paper, so I put a little ad in the paper saying, there's a social club out here for lesbians, not wanting to go to the bars. It's not about the bars. It's not about dating. It's not about politics. Just people coming together, bringing the community together. And in the second year, we already had 50 people. The first dinner we went to, there was 2 of us. That was it. But after that, it just grew and grew. So we've done a lot with Social Club. We've gone to see Katie Lang because Spoleto let me know. They gave me advance notice saying, look, Katie Lang's coming. Would you like advance tickets for your group? And I'm like, yes. So we had 50 tickets, the first 2 rows, I think it was. We had ringside seats. We were very lucky. So we've done a lot of different things over the year. We had the big 10th year anniversary celebration, Les Fest, and we shut a couple of streets off in Park Circle in downtown, and we do things that way. I had a website for a while, and I just thought, just keep it on Facebook, so it's easier. But we do things. We have we always have the dining group now. Because of the virus, nothing is happening right now. But we started a drum corps. We have a kayak club. We have a dining club. That's the most popular. We have book clubs. Way for people to get together and meet each other without the pressure of everything else going on. And a lot of people, women anyway, don't want to go to the bars, and I can understand that. So it works. It works. And especially for new people coming into town, I get a lot of the new people, where do I go? And I'm like, well, you got the right person, because I can help you with that. So we have a referral system as well. If you need doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, whatever, we take care of that as well. And the website's still up there, charlestonsocialclub.com.
There you go. Plug it.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned obviously the community of folks that it takes to pull things like this off, and I think that's a nice segue Tony Williams has been involved with Charleston Pride for a number of years. I know you weren't on the first board or the first group, maybe per se, if my memory serves me correctly, but you worked for the park. Is that correct? That first year, and that's kind of how you got connected.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique story. So I worked at Riverfront Park that very first year, and I was there as a park ranger. And I remember I was sitting in my car reading over the memo of the day and the upcoming events. And at the bottom, I believe it was 3 or 4 months out, and there was a note that coming up in May there was a Pride Festival, and I distinctly remember thinking, "Well, what's that? That's weird. Charleston doesn't have a Pride Festival. What is this?" So I made a note to follow up as soon as I got home. And as soon as I got home, I looked up the website and I found the email to contact somebody there. And I believe it was Paul who got back to me. And I just emailed and said, "Hey, I work at the park. I'd love to help out if I can answer any questions about the park or answer anything logistical or help out in any way that I can." And so Paul got back to me the next day and met with Lynn and Paul and kind of helped the team out in terms of the park logistics and kind of served as a park liaison that first year. Was out there the first festival, and I'll just echo what Lynn said. Seeing that large crowd out there the first year was amazing. I'm a native Charlestonian. I, for one, never thought that we would see a Pride, in Charleston, let alone one that was so well attended, here in such a conservative area. So it was very moving to be able to see that crowd and all the support that day.
And Tony, you invited me to talk in college to a group in college. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it's I don't know if the college still offers that course. It's the LGBT politics.
Was that before
course.
or during Pride? I think it was right before Pride, because I remember trying to talk to the group saying this is what's coming up.
Yep, it was right before Pride. It was taught by Tom Cholton, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but he was a major activist in the gay rights movement in the 80s and the 90s. It was actually the only LGBT politics class taught below the Mason-Dixon at the time.
Wow. I remember that.
Well, so, Tony always had, at least while we were, on the Pride board together, you always had a quote in your signature attributed to Margaret Mead. And I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you remember what that quote is? Can you quote it from off the top of your head?
Oh, yeah. I'd always
paraphrase it.
Never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And that's something I always like to close with. If I was chair of Pride for a few years, and we always put a letter at the top of the Pride Guide, and I would always close my letter with that. And often I would close my emails with that, and even close out board meetings. I know Chase, all of our board meetings throughout the year, you probably get tired of me saying that, but it's definitely true. And as Lynn spoke to, everything that we see today with Pride all started that very first year, and it started with Lynn having that idea and getting a group together. As we've said, we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, and at some point somebody has to start it, and eventually it grows and keeps on growing. And we've seen that over the years with that very first festival in North Charleston, with the transition to downtown a few years later, and how it keeps growing after that. We're now 10 years down the road, and who knows what it's going to look like, in a couple of years as it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, yeah, I want to, if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about that transition that happened. I was on the board at the time when that move happened, but let's talk a little bit about that when the decision was made to leave North Charleston and go downtown. I know there's always been some questions and conversation around that, and without going into too much, behind the scenes information, but talk to us about kind of that move, what that meant symbolically, and then also what it meant logistically, literally, in making that move and having to, change sort of, all the things that we knew about North Charleston. It was a whole new boat downtown. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, one thing that it hasn't been every year, but most years what we've done is we've sent out a survey to the community following the festival to ask, what did you enjoy? What events did you like? What didn't you like so much? What would you like to see improved the following years? And, what would you like to see improved overall? And the number one response that we got the first few years was, this is great. We love having a festival. We love North Charleston. We love Park Circle. I'm a North Charleston boy myself. I'm at Park Circle all the time, or I was before the virus. But Yeah, so that was the number one response was, we love everything that's going on, but it's Charleston Pride. We want to be downtown. We want to be extremely visible. We want to be at the heart of the city. We want to march down King Street. And for the first 3 years, that was the response that we had on each and every survey that we did. So following the third year, which I believe this was going into 2013 or 2014, if my memory serves, we started having conversations with the city of Charleston right after the conclusion of the past festival. We met with the Parks and Recreation Department, started having some preliminary conversations, and it went back and forth for a few months until finally they said, okay, we can accommodate a festival. We have space in our events calendar. It's going to be in August, and it's a little hot in August, but we said, okay, yep, we'll make do with that and keep working towards a date later in the fall over time. But let's go ahead and make the transition downtown to Charleston. And immediately the amount of planning involved grew tenfold, because we went from having a parade that was just, from East Montague, which again is beautiful, but to going to downtown Charleston on King Street, following essentially the Christmas parade route, which is, I believe it's 1.7 miles long in total. So going from Ann Street to Broad Street to Colonial Lake, it's actually, and it still is, the longest non-city sponsored parade in Charleston. So the largest parade is going to be the city Christmas parade. Pride is the largest non-city sponsored parade, which something that we're extraordinarily proud of, not just as an organization, but the community overall, and seeing how much the parade has grown. I believe last year, Mollie might have to correct me, but I believe we had close to 100 parade participants, if not more than that. That was another.
We were 112, I think, 115, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to keep that a secret, though, right? Because nobody. I mean, we had 75. No, that's amazing, though. Incredible growth. Yeah. So, and I think this is actually a great moment. I'm going to drop off the screen, and Mollie, you're here as current vice president or vice chair. I'm not exactly clear on the title names of Charleston Pride, and you and Tony overlapped as well. And can you speak to sort of your experience and what brought you to Pride? What what some of your background is, and then your role today.
Yeah, so this is part of my third year on the board. I volunteered probably about 4 or 5 years ago to help. I don't know if I sold T-shirts or I don't know what I did. I just volunteered and did all kinds of things in the middle of dead heat. And then I will never forget the year that it poured rain in the middle of the festival. I was there with friends. That was one of my absolute favorite moments. Everyone who didn't know each other got under like the smallest amount of tent, and we all became really good friends. I've seen the parade grow. I've been in Charleston since 2012, and I came out to my family and kind of transitioned a lot of my life moments in Charleston. And so 2013, 2014 were really important for me as an individual. And so I decided I wanted to volunteer. And so I started doing small things to get into the community. Outside of just going to bars, obviously, you have to get to know people. And so a way for me was to volunteer. And so that's when I started doing small things. I am an educator, and so I really enjoy doing things that deal with people and that have an impact. And so that part of me is definitely one reason I've stuck with Pride. And I taught with Adam Weaver. If you guys know Adam, love him. Taught with Adam Weaver, and then he had transitioned out of education, and he joined the board, and I volunteered for some things that he was doing. And I'm sure I met Tony in passing, but I hadn't met him until the interview officially. But I remember talking to Adam, and he was like, "You're perfect for the board. You should take your skills your skills would be great on the board, and there's so much to be done. Why not?" And so my motto for many years has been, "Why not?" And just like Tony's quote of a small group makes a big impact. You have to be ready yourself to make an impact. And so I think, as a teacher who I deal with high school students every day and has been doing it for a decade and then some, I will say that adults are just as ready adults are just as hurt, and adults need just as much, and they need just as much support, because not everyone has support at home and in their work life and family life. And so taking that kind of perspective into the board itself has given me a lot of confidence to plan events and to work with different people around the community. One of my favorite things since joining the board 3 years ago, I joined as the director of events. I have a lot of experience in town doing events, which is how I met Loraine. She planned a prom for me several years ago. That's how I met her, through friend of a friend. And but in doing events, you learn to execute things smartly, efficiently, and everyone on the screen knows how important efficiency is. And so you learn who your group is, and you learn kind of what makes things successful. And honestly, success is not always in numbers, but to see how the parade and the festival has grown, the numbers are a beautiful result of how we've grown. But I joined as a director of events, and then in my second year, I stepped up as vice chair and kind of kept events underneath me. I picked up volunteers this year as well, so I am vice chair, director of events, and deal with volunteers. But they all kind of go together in a way. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy communicating with vendors and people around the town, because just like you said, Chase, it really makes a difference when you're working with locals and you're giving them an opportunity to realize that LGBTQ community, we're just people as well. We just want to go to your businesses, and we just want to have a drink at your bar, and we just want to buy a gift from your shop. Our money's no different. Our time is no different, and our love is no different. And so I think when it comes down to people love people, that's what's been driving me for a very long time on the board. And I've worked with Tony. Tony and I have had some very fun adventures, many U-Haul adventures, as you guys all remember, many U-Haul experiences with Pride and festival things. I very much am connected to the fact that in Charleston, people are so tightly knit, and what we have done, all of us collectively, and are still doing the best we can amidst Corona, we want to bring people together. And if that is the basis of everything we do, I think we're still on the right track.
That's awesome. Well, Mollie, I got to tell you, you're getting some love here in the comments. Jeffrey Fleming is actually an AFFA board member, the board president, and he said, we appreciate all you do for our community, Mollie. And of course, has also, I didn't throw them up on the screen because people were talking and I was distracted, but also have comments for Lynn and Tony too. And just, it's so grateful. Everyone is so grateful for what you all are contributing. And I want to bring in Loraine into this conversation as well, because Loraine is currently the chair of Charleston Pride. And so you and Mollie are the two people here that are working together. So wanted to hear, Loraine, tell me about your story and what brought you into Charleston Pride and the work that we heard from Mollie, you planned a prom, so maybe that was the initial connection, but why are you doing this? Why is this important to you?
You know, it's interesting because like hearing Lynn speak about her experiences and also hearing Tony bring up the LGBTQ political class that Tom Charlton taught at the college is really, it's interesting how we're kind of all ingrained together, because I actually took that class as well with Tom and became really close with him. He hosted a Spoleto party at his apartment every year. And he always, if you're driving out to Folly and you look to the right, there's that apartment complex, and he would always have his rainbow flag hanging from his porch. And I believe when he passed and the new owners took over, they continued to keep that flag up there for a good time period too. So it's just interesting how we're all ingrained together, you know, from our individual experiences, but also community-wise. I'm from a small town in Tennessee. I came over to Charleston to go to the college. I wasn't, so obviously making friends and figuring out what to do was an experience and a journey that I feel like I'm still on, and I think I'll always be on as things change here in Charleston. When I graduated from the college, I dabbled here and dabbled there, trying to figure out a career, and then I ended up actually starting my own business. I'm a wedding planner full-time here in the Charleston area. I'm based out of Somerville, and we service a plethora of clients. We do not just wedding planning, we do private design, which is how I met Mollie. We probably had passed each other at events in the past, community-wise, but we weren't friends at the time. So when she needed some help, we were happy to jump on board. I have to say, Mollie kind of challenged me from the beginning, which I think is why we work so well together, because that prom was on the Yorktown, and it was a challenge. And it was a great experience, and it really taught me the additional things that I needed to run my business. And I think that my business ended up becoming a sponsor of Charleston Pride that same year. And I think we've always been involved at some level. Either we've had our truck through the parade, or we've walked. We've had a booth at the festival in Burbank every single year. And even behind the scenes, just from a sponsor perspective, I was kind of helping logistically with the parade a little bit, just because I was kind of always at the back end of the parade with my big truck. And so it just kind of was easier for us from a event management perspective to kind of help manage the people on the street and the order of that parade. So Mollie approached me, I guess, two falls ago, about coming on the board to be the director of sponsorships. Having been a sponsor and having that event management and the financial, I guess, knowledge about what a small business is interested in giving to an organization, and also what an organization needs from sponsors, and how to kind of piggyback and help with those events, was really, I think, Mollie and Tony's intention on, with bringing me onto the board. So I was nervous about adding something to my ever-filling cup, but I was happy to do it, and I did an interview, and I think pretty quickly we just felt like it was a good fit for me. And I ran with sponsorships last year during the 10th anniversary, and Tony could probably correct me if I'm wrong here, but we drastically increased sponsorship last year. That is solely not thanks to me. I'm not tooting my own horn. It is thanks to the whole board. We have our tiered level options, and we made certain branding opportunities for people to really get their business involved, from the Pride Guide to Toast to Equality that Mollie hosts as well. So we did a lot last year, and I think we ended up with over 40 sponsors.
44.
44. Thank you, Tony. Yeah, between a low-level $500 entry-level sponsor all the way up to someone who really put in a lot of time and money and effort into partnering with us. So I really enjoyed the relationships that I got to build with people, not just small business owners and LGBTQ business owners, but also allied businesses that really wanted to make sure that it was clear with the community that we are welcome there, that you are welcome there. They want stickers in the windows, and they want to walk with us, and they want to come to our events, and they want to buy our t-shirts. And so I really enjoyed those relationships that I made. And there was a lot of board turnover, I think, last year. I hate to say that because it sounds so negative, but it had been 10 years, right? It's a decade of building this organization up. Tony had been involved pretty much from the first or second year, so he'd already committed a decade of his time. And I think at a point, life changes for people, and we had a large turnover, and I had someone nominate me to take over for Tony as he retired and took a step back. And I know that, Chase, you and I talked at length about what does this position look like, responsibility of managing, being a parent, being a spouse, being a friend, a daughter, a wedding planner? Can I handle the extra time and management? And I know I talked with Tony and Mollie at length too, because I really wanted to make sure that if I took this position, I wanted for everyone on the board for us to really work well as a team. Whoever we brought on to fill the positions that were empty, I really wanted to make sure that everyone was able to be vocal about what their interests are and really feel fulfilled in what they were doing. And that's something I've really pushed hard for this year, is to really let people be creative and be involved. And we have the most diverse board I think that Pride has ever had this year. We have everyone under the sun on our board, including allies. Everyone has their own little, niche of what they're really good at. And a lot of the people that serve on our board this year actually do their board role almost in real life as well. I manage events, private events, and have clients where I manage things for them. I feel like that's a lot of what I do for the board. Mollie does events and is a very big people person. That's exactly what she does on the board. So I feel like all of our positions kind of fell into the right hands this year. We haven't been super active, or as active as I think Mollie and I probably have wanted us to be this year, with coronavirus and with some other things that have been happening locally. But I think we're ready to move forward with micro type events throughout the year and let those people really express the things they're interested in doing and express their specialties through those micro events for the duration of 2020.
Well, I want to bring Mollie back in on that conversation, since you're talking about kind of what's happening now, and beyond just, yes, Charleston Pride Festival is postponed, or I don't know if you're using canceled or postponed for this year, but right, what are the things that we can look forward to this year? Micro events, what does that mean exactly?
So in the past, I know you're familiar, or everyone watching, listening, with Paint the Town parties, where we are able to paint the town different colors of the rainbow. We're able to, do a fun drink, and we go to a local area or local business, a local bar, depending on how we do them. And we've done a cleanup in the past on the Greenway, so they've been a little different. But we're looking to expand the Paint the Town events, where we can do them safely and we can do them with sponsors. We are talking through letting people who are still sponsored and have signed up with us to maybe sponsor a month or sponsor 1 to 2 events that month. If you guys are familiar with Toast to Equality, Tony had an amazing idea, and then we put a lot of brain cells together. I'm surprised we have some left, but we put this awesome event together called Toast to Equality, and we love to bring the community together and let them try and vote on different cocktails from our sponsors at Breakthrough Beverage and at Jack Daniel's. And we really want the community to have that this year, so we're going to try a virtual twist on that to come out later in the summer, and we want to include at minimum 6 bars, and include people who worked with us in the past, people like El Jefe, and people like Republic, who are very, very big sponsors of us, and friends and allies as well, and members of the LGBTQ community, attend their events just like they attend ours. And so we want to give love to those who are supporting us 365 all year long. And the kind of micro events we're looking towards 1 to 2, maybe 3 a month, depending on the month, through pretty much from July to November. And if we can do smaller events and have, smaller impacts, and safe impacts, I think that's going to be the best way, because again, we want to bring people together, but we want to give people the choice of where to go and how they feel comfortable. For example, we worked with Taco Boy in the past for several years at Takeover. If you guys have ever been to Takeover, you get there and you can't move because there's so many amazing people there on the patio, right? It's so full. It's one of my favorite events is Takeover. Even though it's the night before Pride, I still go and stay to the end because it's worth it. And we have several great DJs. who help us out. And we have some new people on board this year, and we're just excited for new people wanting to help us. So we're going to do virtual dance parties. So like a dance party in your living room. So we have that coming up. We have several things that we are going to do that are virtual, but as well we want to do in person. And so the planning of that is strategic, but it's also getting people in the community to say, hey, I want to help. Hey, we want to help. And so we've been sending out emails quite regularly and getting some allies and some allied businesses who are reaching out to us, just like we've worked with 10 West Edge in the past. Loraine and I have met with a different apartment complex right there in front of the River Dogs, and they want to be a part of something too. And so there's just so many opportunities, but planning those events effectively and efficiently and make sure we're planning something that will actually happen is kind of where we are. But we want to make sure that people know that we are intending to do events that will bring people together but are safe, which is what we can hope. And Pride is 365, and so it's kind of actually fun that it's not just 1 week. While we can't march through the streets, we can still have Pride every day when we walk downtown or any part of town, really. And it gives us a chance, to be very honest, it gives us a chance to do stuff that is not just downtown. Like Lynn has touched on, we were in North Charleston originally. Well, we haven't brought up the fact that right now Loraine is sitting in the Pride office, which is a really, really big deal. We share the Pride office with you guys at AFFA. And it is such an honor to be able to go to the Pride office, work in the Pride office, and literally stone's throw away from Riverfront Park. And Tony has made that comment several times of how awesome it is to just be close to where it all started. And so showing love to Somerville and Dorchester and North Charleston and downtown and West Ashley. The queer community is everywhere in Charleston. People come in for the events, but the queer community is absolutely everywhere. And it's kind of nice to be able to sprinkle events everywhere as well and not just focus on downtown. So that's our intent. We did post a postpone statement, obviously postponing to 2021 for both the typical festival and the parade. But we are just encouraging people to come out as they feel safe and as things are planned in the next few months. So
that's great, and I know that must have been a difficult decision to make, knowing that you already had begun to put plans together, and of course you're always looking forward to the next year. But not that you need my validation, but while I know it was a really challenging and heartbreaking decision to make, I personally believe it's the right one. These are unprecedented times. These are especially now we're looking at the spike of cases in our own state, and these are difficult decisions we're making. AFFA is also canceled events that were supposed to happen already, and we're postponing future events, and that's it's a challenge. So I want to thank you for taking a difficult step to do that for the betterment of the community and protection of the community, and that's ultimately what's most important. So, and thanks also. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to add one more thing. I've been under several kinds of leadership, both in my job and on the Pride Board, and it's very interesting to see how much people care on the board and working with other people. We don't have a tier system, so to speak, and on the board we're all coworkers. But just for those of people who don't know, we are all 100% volunteer, and so that is something that rings true to every day. Sometimes when we're really tired and really busy and life is happening and something else happens, I, at the end of the day, say these people are volunteering their time to be with us. And the same thing with actual volunteers who help us at events. And so that is something that as we continue to go forward, micro events and big events, anyone considering joining the board, do it. Send an application in, tell us why. And everyone who sends application does get an interview. And so you're able to meet with the board in person. But also, if you are unable to give and unable to donate, volunteering is a great way to get connected. All of us have volunteered and we are where we are. And so I just want to put that plug out there that it's not always, as some people say, it's not always just a party for Pride. And a lot of it is volunteering and giving your heart and giving your time. Time and energy are so valuable. And so that's something that everyone on this screen and everyone on this call has given more than we could calculate, and we would be really tired calculating it. But I will say that is the stuff that keeps me around and that keeps us going as a board in general. So.
That's thank you for bringing that up, because I think so many people don't realize that Charleston Pride is an entirely volunteer-run organization. From the outside looking in, you think, how in the world could there not be a staff person that's organizing and helping to lead this process? But it speaks very highly of you all for the work that you put in and the time that you give, and not just you all, but of course the boards and volunteers of years past as well. I know when I was the chair, I would get emails from people who automatically assumed that I was a staff person, a paid staff person, and I'd have to tell them, no, I have a real job, and we can talk to you later. So it's always a surprise, I think, to a lot of people when they find out, oh no, these are all volunteers giving their time. And I know from my experience, there's this moment leading up to the festival where you're like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then the festival happens and you're like, this was amazing. Yeah. And I want to do this again. I know that happened every year, it felt like. So thank you both for what you're doing right now, and the work that you're giving and the time that you're giving to make this organization what it is. And you're right, Mollie, you mentioned Loraine sitting there in the Equality Hub, our office that we share with Charleston Pride, and that also speaks to, I think, the what I've always taken as sort of the spirit of Charleston Pride, which is that it's not just about the party, it's not just about the socials, but there is sort of this vision for something beyond that, and the connection to the community is so important. So thank you for being partners with us in that work as well. I want to bring everyone back on the screen here. Let's see. Yes, we've got everyone back. And just sort of as we're closing out here, I've got a couple questions that I want to just pose, and not everyone has to answer, but I just want to put these out there. There is a conversation that continues to be had about sort of the, for lack of a better word, corporatization of Pride, and how it's changed through the years. And as we all have been a part of this, Lynn mentioned you had to raise $6,000 that first year, and now, Charleston Pride today, you raise, infinitely more to put on the festival. And so, of course, there are individuals who support that work, but there are businesses that support that work. So without getting too in the weeds about that particular topic, would love to hear any of you speak to, how has Pride changed from the beginning when it started with the Christopher Street, Liberation March in New York City, to now where we're seeing, festivals across, the world. Speak to it from your perspective. How has Pride changed, and how has it stayed the same? Lynn, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you be willing to take a stab at that?
We are everywhere. And that's the first thing I thought of, because when the first Pride parades, it was in New York, San Francisco, the bigger cities. Now they're everywhere. We have a Low Country Pride in Beaufort. They're all over. We have integrated really into our society, which is the ultimate goal, I think, because then we become mainstream. Not good or good, but it is the way it is. We become, I hate this word, normalized and accepted. And that's the whole basis for AFFA, isn't it? So, and I think that as we grow, and not just Charleston, but everywhere, that it makes our lives so much easier and so much better, that we're not hiding out anymore. So that brings everybody out. And as people come out, I think it's the best thing you can do is come out, don't be in hiding. And it's more accepted. I mean, when I came out, it was dangerous. It really was. It's not, and it can be dangerous, yes, today, but not like it was. And so just keep up. And I just want to say one thing to the boards over time. Thank you for keeping this up and all the work that you do, because, people can start something, but it could also die out. And you've taken it to the next and the next and the next level. And that is amazing and speaks to your your devotion, your pride, and your love of community, because that's really what it is. And so I just want to say thank you for that, for keeping this up, because it would have been terrible if it just went away. It keeps growing, and that's the best it can be, is get everybody involved. And if anybody is seeing this outside, please volunteer. We need help. It takes a lot to put on a parade. It takes a lot to put on a festival. Trust me, it's a lot of work. And you get to meet wonderful people, work with them, and I know I'm plugging it for you, but I don't care. But it's important that you get involved in your own community and stay involved. And so thank you for all the past and all the future that you will be holding prides. So thanks.
I want to echo something that Lynn just said, is that we are everywhere, and no matter how you identify, race, ethnicity, gender, no matter where you fall on whatever spectrum that you believe exists, I will say that doing something for the community and being a part of something bigger than yourself is what really changes you. And the volunteers do things, in any kind of volunteer, whether you're volunteering and waving a flag, whether you're volunteering and pointing people in one direction, or cheering people on the sidewalk, or whatever, moving boxes, whatever you're volunteering and doing, 99% of the time you get 200% more out of it than the work you're putting in. And so for people who have not been a part of something like community-wise like this, come to events and come to things, but giving of your time, really, and being a part of something bigger than yourself, it is the biggest and the best thing you can do. And it doesn't have to be Charleston Pride. It may be AFFA, it may be Charleston Social Club, or it may be something in your community, smaller in your community. But I think every little thing is going to get us one step further, and it's infinite growth if you think of it that way. So.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that and say festivals and pride celebrations may change over the years in terms of how they look, or logistically they may change over time, but the spirit remains the same, and it's about celebration and about creating visibility for our community. And we know that our number one ally has been and continues to be and will always be visibility. And the more that our community is out there, especially in areas below the Mason-Dixon, in Charleston, in North Carolina, in Georgia, everywhere in the South, it is vitally important for our community to be visible, because if people recognize us and they know that we're there, that is how people become more accepting. And we've seen that over time as these celebrations continue to grow. So that's the number one thing I always told people when I was more involved with Pride and leading Pride, was that it's not just a party, it's a celebration of visibility. It's a celebration of bringing people together and letting the community know that, we are your family, we are your doctors, your lawyers, your teachers, we're here.
Loraine, I want to give you the last word here as the current chair of Charleston Pride. What are your parting words for us about why Pride is still important, why it's needed, and what's ahead?
I think before we went live today, we kind of had a behind the scenes conversation, just the five of us, and I think that and same thing, Mollie and I talk probably every other day, just kind of checking in on each other and kind of seeing where we're at, because this year has obviously been very difficult for a lot of us, whether we've been out of work, or maybe someone has been sick, or been exposed to someone who's been sick, and things are changing and you're having to homeschool and all of these different things. But Mollie does like to call it Pride 365, and she likes to call it that because being open and visible and proud of yourself every single day of the year, just that one internal self-acknowledgement really radiates. If you've ever met someone who's so happy, right? When they walk into a room, it just radiates and makes everyone else feel happy. I feel like being proud is the same way. If you're proud and you've accepted yourself, your community has accepted you, your allies have accepted you, and you will feel safe and comfortable to be in your community, I think it just needs to be something that becomes ingrained in us. And that's one of the reasons why we want to do these micro events as safely as possible throughout the next few months, so that we're not confined to trying to do things safely within like a week's time frame, right? That seems unrealistic. It's going to be a lot of work, and having back-to-back things won't give people flexibility. So we want to maybe stagger a few things, 2 or 3 events throughout the next couple months, and really create more of like a Pride Fall Festival, right? Something that can continually roll over from week to week, from month to month. I know people have always wondered why we don't have the festival in June, since that is National Pride Month. And I know Tony touched on that a little bit of, we have to be based on the city of Charleston's availability. And being in August, potentially again this year, people weren't happy about the heat again either. So maybe doing a little bit of stuff every other week for the next few months gives a variety of things for a variety of people. And I think that's really what our community is about anyway, right? Bringing together a variety of people. And we may have a lot of differences, but we all have one commonality, and that's why we're here. And I think I would echo both Tony and Mollie and Lynn in saying that if you felt during this unprecedented time, when you've been at home or out of work and you've been really figuring out the value of certain things, whether it's yourself or with others, and you want to give back, I have to say that being part of Charleston Pride has been one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done. Besides starting my own business and becoming a parent, I think walking out on the stage and seeing 7,500 people come together and waving their flags and, all cheering and having the same mindset and goal. Last year when we did that, it was one of the toughest things to do because I get very nervous about public speaking, but it was one of the most life-changing things to look out and see that many people in one place celebrating acceptance and love and visibility. And so I would just challenge people, if you're feeling the call, right, to do something for yourself or for others, to volunteer with anyone. And like Mollie said, it doesn't have to be with us, but find something that really speaks to you, and really be proud of what you're doing. And I think that everyone on the board this year can attest that we're really proud of where Pride has come. And we're very thankful for what Lynn started, 10 or 11 years ago. And we're really excited to see where things can go once things are safe again. And we hope to continue to grow this organization for another 10 years.
Well, thank you, Loraine, and thank you everyone for being able to be on this call today and sharing your experience. I'll just echo, what they said. If you are interested in being involved with any of the local organizations, encourage you to obviously get in touch with them. But specifically with Charleston Pride, they have a monumental task ahead of them in organizing these events and continuing to stay relevant and connected with the community. So if you are interested in doing that type of work and being connected to the festival, please reach out to them, go to their website. And I'll also put a plug in. They didn't say this necessarily, but as a nonprofit organization, they could use your support. Pride does not happen without the support of many individuals as well as businesses. And so, if you feel so led to make a contribution, I know they'd be grateful for that. So I'll say that for them, and not necessarily so they don't have to say it for themselves, but want to invite people to get involved in that way as well. With that, I am going to just close us up today and say thank you again to our guests who were able to join us from Charleston Pride from the very beginning with Lynn and the others, and also just want to say, along the same lines of what I just said about Charleston Pride, the Alliance for Full Acceptance is also a nonprofit organization, and we rely on the support of generous people who want to contribute to help us continue with the work that we're doing in the community. And so we are grateful for any support, any donations that folks are willing to give. please, you can go onto our website and learn more about our organization, but also make a contribution there. We will continue to do these programs and be looking out for that. If there's anything that you would like to see us do, any conversations you'd like to see us tackle, please reach out to us. You can find us on our website, email me directly or a board member as well, and let us know what you'd like to see us talk about in the future and topics that you think are important and critical to be heard. So with that, I'm going to close it up. Thank you everyone who joined us, and please, stay in touch with us, return and see other programs, and take care, be safe, wear your mask, and take care of the people around you as well. Thanks so much.